First of all, we'd like to start by welcoming all of our participants today on behalf of the Utiva team and our panelist guests, Andrea Donsky and Dawn Anderson. We're excited about today's session because we not only have one, but we have two holistic nutritionists with us tonight. And both of them will be presenting a bit, and they also will be taking your question and answers. So it's a great opportunity to kind of get your questions in, and we'll try our best to get through them. Some of you may know me. I'm one of the founders of Utiva, along with my partner, Derek O. And usually we're the ones moderating the session, but today we thought we would actually take a few minutes to talk about the company, a little bit about the products, and we're also here if you have any questions for us. So feel free to keep that in mind, and we're here to help support if you need anything. So moving on to the agenda, it's fairly simple. We'll start with introductions, do a quick review of UTIs, a little bit about the products and the science behind it. Then I'm going to pass it over to Don. We'll talk about, not all Cranberry products are the same, as he sees many of these products in his store. And then I'll turn it over to Andrea Donsky, who will talk about some general bladder health tips. Then we'll get into some prepared questions that we have just to get the ball rolling, and then you can start sending in your questions. Now, you don't need to wait till the very end. You can start sending in your questions now so we can get them organized. And lastly, and most importantly, you must stay towards the end because we're going to do a live raffle, and you have to be there to win your prizes. So the prizes for the live raffle are 2 gift cards for Amazon, $150 each. So good to get ahead of your Black Friday shopping. All right, so let me start with the introductions. I'll start with Andrea. So Andrea Donsky is a registered holistic nutritionist, best-selling author, health and wellness, lifestyle expert, menopause educator, and a podcast host. Andrea is the co-founder of naturalsavvy.com and wearmorphus.com, a couple of websites you should definitely look up. She writes numerous publications. She's authored of a best-selling book called Unjunk Your Junk Food. I'm curious about checking this out. She also co-hosts the Natural Savvy Weekly podcast and a Morphus podcast as well. And you may have recognized her from TV because she does a lot of different TV segments as a healthy living expert across North America. Something we hope to get into tonight is her venture Morphus. Morphus is a no judgment zone movement where women in menopause feel heard, safe, and supported. So Andrea, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Over to you, Don. So Don, thanks for joining us as well. Don is a holistic nutritionist and works with one of the busiest Healthy Planet stores in the Greater Toronto area. Don spends his time day in, day out, firsthand helping hundreds of customers. And I've seen this firsthand because I go out of my way to learn from Don and see what he recommends. And when I'm there, there's a lot of people around waiting for Don to speak to him. So I benefited a lot from him. Outside of Healthy Planet, Don founded Blue Dot Nutrition. He specializes in diabetes. And in his practice, he's devoted to helping people live healthier lives. So thanks, Don, for doing what you do.
Thank you very much. Great being here.
All right, to get started with Zio Plus, if you all are wondering, what is Zio Plus? And some of you may recognize the name from if you buy from us, you probably see it in your credit card bill. If you're a really old customer, you might have seen this name. It's a poor name. It's a poor choice of letters. It's Zio, S-Z-I-O. But that's actually how we started. Derek and I founded the company as Zio, and we quickly created the brand Utiva, which is only dedicated towards urinary tract health support. One of the key things in our mission is anything that we launch has got to be high quality, backed by a science or clinical studies, and supported by the medical community, because we want to make sure that whatever we launch works. And so far, we've been very happy touching thousands of patients in this journey. Here's Derek and I. We're kind of privileged. We've been in the healthcare industry for a long period of time. I think collectively there's about over 40 years of experience. And in that journey, we've met, many different experts like Andrea, Don, but even our medical professionals, such as urologists, urogynecologists, scientists. And it takes a lot of people to get everything together. I've been very fortunate to do that. I also wanted to touch on is we're also driven by this with a very personal mission. And we could have done work in many areas outside of UTI, but this personally at home. This is my mom, by the way, and Derek's wife. And their stories are on their website. You can check them out. But Andrea knows that I'm passionate about menopause to a certain degree. But where that comes from is because my grandma just lived with menopause as if it's something that's just exists and you got to just live with it. And I'm so livid with that kind of mentality. Is your health is in your hands. You got to take control and do something about it. You can't just ignore it. And so for us, the business is way beyond that, and we're happy that we were able to help home, but now we've touched over 30,000 people, and continue to grow. So don't keep it a secret for all the ones that are using Utiva. Make sure you tell people about it and spread the word. So quick review of UTIs. So UTI is an infection in the urinary system, mostly affecting your urethra, your ureters. But majority of the UTIs are actually in the lower urinary tract system. So it's mostly your bladder and urethra. Women are more susceptible to UTIs because of their shorter urethra. But men aren't exempt. I mean, there's 12% of men that do have UTIs. And as they get older, there's definitely the chances of UTIs go up because of the amount of urine they're keeping in their bladder. So the interesting thing is, it is also the most overlooked disease state, because if you ask doctors, it is the second most common infection that they see. They in fact call it a bladder cold, and it's something that's overlooked. And we just need to make sure that we continue to increase the awareness around UTIs, because it can be controlled. In terms of symptoms, a lot of anyone who's listening in is probably very familiar with it if they've had a UTI in the past. But the symptoms are from pelvic pain to burning sensation when you pee, any strong and frequent urgency to urinate, fever and chills. These are the very common symptoms. One of the products that we had launched was a UTI test strip for home use. And if you ever have symptoms, that's something that's quick and easy. It's nice, you can screen it and make sure that you don't sit around and ignore that UTI, because it could be detrimental. Right. Here's a quick look at our portfolio. As we look at it, there's actually the home test strip that I was just talking about, but we have 4 products for prevention. And if there's any confusion around it, today's a good day to get into it. We obviously launched, for those who know, with the 36 milligrams of PAX, the Cranberry supplement. That is our go-to product. But we also have the D-Manos. There are a lot of customers, a lot of patients who see good benefit from D-Manos, so we did launch it. And we also have a probiotic, because anyone who takes a certain dose of antibiotics should restore their flora back up. So we have a probiotic as a daily supplement. We also cater to kids, so we have gummies for kids. It's half the dose of our Utiva supplement, and we also have personal hygiene wipes, so it's easy to travel with. So in terms of timing, I'm quickly going to go through the products, and then I'll hand it over to Don. So this, I was saying, is the Cranberry supplement. It is our go-to. It is our best product. It's what we started with. Essentially, this product has the 36 milligrams of PAX. PAX are the active molecule from the cranberry. Don will talk more about it, but it has the clinically proven dose to prevent the UTIs. And that's very important, because if you go through different labels of different cranberry supplements, you may not be able to see that kind of PAX in it, which is very important. It's super easy to take. It's once a day pill, and it's good for everyday support. And it helps flush your body. Now, people who may not have a UTI should know that it has very high in antioxidants. So even if you feel like the UTIs are gone, we still recommend you take this daily, not only for urinary tract health support, but cranberries have a lot, especially PAX, have a lot of good support. When it comes to D-Manos, very pure formulation, made here locally in Toronto. The most important thing to note is if you are only taking D-Manos, make sure you take 2 grams a day. In order to take 2 grams, you should be taking 4 capsules daily. So it is quite a bit more product as compared to like an easy once a day cranberry supplement. We always recommend, if you are taking something for daily support, start with the cranberry. But if you do like your D-Manos, or if you feel like you know your trigger points, symptoms are coming on, it is good to take both products. But the one call out here is do not take D-Manos and PAX at the same time. It is better to space it out by at least 2 to 3 hours. A lot of times we even recommend take your D-Manos in the morning, take your packs in the evening, if you are taking both products. The reason why we say that is because D-Manos, we have seen some data to show that D-Manos does actually limit the ability of the packs to work at its most optimal best. So best to separate it. When it comes to the probiotics, it's a great option. We were careful as we put this together on two things. One, it had the right strains for vaginal and gut support. The other thing is it has a delayed release capsule, so it resists all the stomach acids. And if you're getting 30 billion CFUs, you're getting most of those 30 billion CFUs in the gut. And it's a once a day pill. Moving on, the gummies for kids, we have half the dose of your regular 36 milligrams. So you get about 18 milligrams of packs here. But in order to take the 18 milligrams, you have to take 4 gummies a day. So it is best for kids who want to have either a cranberry healthy regimen or good for urinary tract health support. It's vegan, it's gluten-free, and it's got natural vitamin C in it. I was going to say gelatin-free as well. So keep that in mind for your kids. When it comes to the home-based test strips, this is one of your dipsticks that a lot of doctors keep in their offices. It's a rapid test. You usually have the results within 2 minutes when you have it. It's a pea stick. Fairly easy to use. We have a lot of instructions on our website, but it's a midstream test that you can do at your comfort. Great for travel. So if you ever are considering traveling, you don't want to be looking around for a walk-in clinic. Some things that you can keep handy with you. And lastly, when it comes to the cleansing wipes, we launched this because a lot of our customers wanted something that they could keep on the go for hygiene. And so this is a product that's non-fragrant, alcohol-free, it's got the pH balance, and it's very convenient to take around with you. We only package 15, so it's easy to travel with. And lastly, when it comes to more of a tech and support community, we have a UTI tracker app. This is an app that was built by a urologist, and it's helping you basically monitor your urinary tract health on a day-to-day basis. So especially if you are one of those that have chronic UTIs, you want to make sure you know what is triggering the UTI. So great to know your trigger, and that's a trigger that your doctor would find extremely helpful. So if you have your history there, it's very valuable to share that with them. And then you can also self-check. One other feature here is if you are taking any of the supplements, it'll send you a reminder to make sure that you can take your supplements on time. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Don. So Don, over to you on all the various Cranberry products that you see and what you look for.
Great. So lots of different products available on the market. So when you go into a health food store, usually there is a very good like 3-4 foot section of cranberry products, and you're going to get dried cranberry extracts, juice extracts, and juice itself, cranberry juice I'm referring to. And so plus also, of course, the D-Manos that Faraz was talking about earlier. A lot of people come in and they're letting dollars, I guess, take their eye. And so Utiva, we're going to get into why it works a little bit better and kind of why it's a little more expensive than the other ones. And it is certainly worth the little extra money that you're going to pay for it. Now, they're not all the same. So perfect timing on the slide change. So what we're looking at here is E. coli, the bacteria that's causing the urinary tract infections. And so the packs, the 36 milligram packs that's in the Utiva product, it's going to adhere to all those bacteria, and it kind of makes them slippery. So I tell everyone, it's kind of like washing your hands. You got all kinds of soap and everything just falls off. The bacteria can no longer attach itself to the human body and just gets released every time we urinate. So next slide, please.
Yep.
So we wanted to talk about the differences maybe a little bit further. And so we talk about 36 milligram of packs in the Utiva product. And what's amazing is Utiva has gone to the extra mile, right? So they've gone out and they've purchased a whole bunch of other products that's available on the shelf, and they're testing the amount of packs that's in the products between the extracts and the juice powders. And what they found through the testing is we're only getting it around 5 milligrams or less of PAX. And we find that dosage, it's not working. So we need to get up into that 36 milligram PAX. That's where the actual prevention comes in at that dosage. This
Don,
is great.
I was going to show you this slide. I think it's a good segue from what you're saying, right?
Perfect. So, you know, a lot of those products that are right there on that slide is something that we're going to carry in most health food stores. And you can see the difference between the packs, the 36 milligram with Utiva, of course, and some of the other ones, 5 and less, certainly. And I guess something that I've missed that I want to highlight is that these other companies that are selling these cranberry extracts, they are not even posting on their products the quantity of packs that are in there. So I'm not even sure if they're testing or not, but they're certainly not putting it on their products. So when we are looking for something for UTI, you know, you pick up the Utiva product, and of course in big bold letters, you know, we're seeing that it's 36 milligrams of packs.
Perfect.
As we can see here, sizing as well. So if we were going to take some of these other products and try and get up to 36 milligram packs, we're going to get into much larger capsules, much more capsules. I think Faraz is going to go to the next slide in a moment. But you can see here just physical size. Yeah, perfect. You know, 9 capsules versus just 1 capsule of the Utiva with the 36 milligrams of packs in it. Big difference. When I see people coming to the store, if I were to tell them that they were going to have to take 9 pills throughout the day, a lot of people think I'm crazy and would not buy that product at all. It's so much more convenient to take 1 capsule a day.
The one thing, Don, that you guided us a lot in personally was the amount of fillers. And you want to comment on that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. So Faraz, as he said earlier, I get to see him quite often. You know, every couple of months he's in the store. And so we worked on the fillers with him. I was, you know, luckily enough to work with him. And so we removed all kinds of, a lot of fillers. And you're going to see these bigger capsules from other products. They're going to have a lot of other fillers in them. So we removed them with Utiva, much cleaner product. I believe you actually ended up going to a new company to get your products capsules. Is that correct, Faraz? I think you went to
that is correct. We moved them to Toronto.
That is something that most companies wouldn't do. And so Utiva, hats off to Faraz and Derek for going that extra step. You actually change your supplier, change the way you process your product to make a better, cleaner product. That's amazing.
Thanks, Don. You know, just to wrap it up, you know, so far we've been honored to like serve over 30,000 people with Utiva, and so far I think some of our customers who may be on this call today, you know, they may have received a survey that we have done probably about 2 to 3 months ago, and we had about 500 people respond in that survey, and we were impressed that 96% of those consumers who had used Utiva for more than 6 months had seen a significant reduction in their UTIs. And it was pretty powerful. And it shows that science works. It shows that if you care for all the small little things, it does make a huge difference. And perfect. And you know, another great stat here is about half of our customers use it on a daily basis, which is something we always emphasize. Perfect. With this, I'm going to hand it over to Andrea, who's going to talk about some general healthy tips for your bladder.
Thanks, Faraz. I'm one of those people who use it every day. It's awesome. Okay, so, you know, millions of people get UTIs every single year. So I'm going to talk about some natural ways and some tips that we can do to help minimize that and even prevent it. Okay, so let's start with bathroom tips. So number 1, you want to make sure that you wipe from front to back. And the reason for that is because wiping from back to front can actually transfer E. coli, which is the bacteria that's responsible for most UTIs that we saw on that image before, to the urethra. Number 2, we want to make sure that we practice safe sex hygiene. So you always want to pee after having sex. It helps to wash away the bacteria that may have made its way to the urethra, so it can help prevent contamination. Number 3, you never want to hold your pee. So if you have the urge to go, go, especially if you're trying to avoid or heal from a UTI. So when we hold in our urine for long periods of time, the bacteria in our bladder actually can multiply. So peeing can help flush out that bacteria. And funny enough, when I was working on this, I actually had to go to the bathroom. I'm like, got to go to the bathroom, can't wait. So I actually had to run and do it. So I take my own advice. Number 2 is image number 2 with the towel. So the next step is to keep our delicate area clean and dry. So keeping moisture levels down to make it less hospitable for bacteria to thrive is really important. And always use a clean towel and dry gently. You want to consider wearing cotton underwear so the area can breathe. And if you work out and you can't shower right away, think about changing your underwear right away. And that way it keeps the area dry. Okay, so the next image is hydration, hydration, hydration. You probably hear that a lot, not only for UTIs, but just for general health. And the reason why we want to make sure that we're well hydrated, it's very important because, first of all, let's think back to a time, and I'm sure everybody can relate, where you went to the bathroom, you went to pee, and your urine was really dark and it's had a strong odor. That's a good indication that you're not hydrated enough, or you're not drinking enough. And not peeing enough and being dehydrated have both been shown to be causes for developing UTIs. So you want to aim, and here's a really good tip. You want to aim to drink half your weight in ounces every single day. So if you're 140 pounds, that's about 70 ounces of liquid. So which is about 9 cups or 8.75 to be exact. And we always want to drink filtered water whenever possible. So cranberries, we've heard a lot about cranberries tonight, and we all love Utiva because it's an amazing company. So I'm going to start first because Don touched upon this, he talked about drinking cranberry juice. So it's very well known to drink cranberry juice when you want to help prevent or to help treat a UTI. And it does show that it can help a little bit, but the key is to make sure that you're drinking unsweetened cranberry juice, because the sugar in the cranberry juice actually feeds the bacteria that cause the UTI in the first place. But here's the issue with the unsweetened cranberry juice is that we don't know how many packs are actually in the bottle. And we also don't know how many glasses we should be drinking. So it's not necessarily going to be effective for what we need it to do. And that's why taking a cranberry supplement like Utiva is really important, because they talked about the 36 milligrams of packs, that's the clinical amount, which is what the science shows that actually helps to prevent UTIs in the first place. Also, Utiva is going to be concentrated, much more concentrated than a juice would be, than drinking cranberry juice. So all you need to do with Utiva, it's 1 capsule a day. You saw that tiny little capsule. And since I've been taking it, I haven't had any UTIs. So that's, it does work. And again, I love the science behind it. Now, something else that Faraz did mention is that Utiva also has D-mannose. And if you currently have a UTI, considering to take D-mannose is really great, and it prevents the bacteria, like Don said, from sticking to the urinary walls. And in the past, when I did have UTIs, I did take D-mannose and it did work. So I'm a big fan of D-mannose as well. Okay, so the next image is the fermented foods. We're going to talk about a little bit about probiotic foods and probiotic supplements. So probiotics, if you're not familiar with the term, is good bacteria. And research shows good bacteria helps to support our immune systems. Probiotics help to keep the not so good bacteria, you may have heard of it as bad bacteria, at bay, and it stops it from multiplying. So you can get probiotics from fermented foods, like you could see here on the screen, like kimchi and sauerkraut and miso and pickles, but you can also eat prebiotic foods. Now, prebiotics feed the good bacteria in our body. So examples of prebiotic foods are dandelion greens, Jerusalem artichokes, garlic, leeks, asparagus, and bananas. And then you can also obviously take a probiotic supplement like Faraz touched upon before. So I just mentioned how garlic is a prebiotic food, which again, it feeds the good bacteria in our gut. So the thing about garlic is that it also has other health benefits because it has antibacterial properties, especially when it comes to a UTI. The issue, however, with garlic is you need quite a bit of it. And it has to be eaten on a full stomach, otherwise it might cause some digestive issues, and it can interfere with some medications. So it's not my favorite way to treat a UTI. Cranberries are definitely the better option and easier way to go. And interestingly enough, leafy greens, specifically kale, has high amounts of beta carotene, which may help prevent recurring UTIs. So kale is one of my absolute favorite vegetables, super easy to eat. You can eat it raw, you can eat it cooked. Just make sure if you're eating it raw, a really cool recipe would be taking off the stems, putting in some raw kale. You can mix the different types of kales now. You go to the store, there's so many different types available. Massage the leaf because it'll make it nice and soft. And then you can throw in some unsweetened, no sugar added cranberries to it to give it a little bit of flavor, as well as some olive oil, some garlic, as well as lemon juice and Himalayan salt. So that's a really good recipe. And while we're on the topic of food, something I really want you to keep in mind is certain foods like chocolate or beverages like coffee and alcohol can actually irritate or aggravate the urinary tract. So just be mindful of that. And then lastly, we want to be mindful of our hormones. So as women go into perimenopause and menopause, our hormones change, making us more susceptible to UTIs because of our lower estrogen levels, which thin the tissues of the urinary tract. So this is why practicing good hygiene, practicing the tips that we talked about today is really important. And also keeping our immune system really is important as well in terms of helping to prevent and keep your UTIs at bay.
Perfect. Thanks, Andrea. So with this, that's a great wrap up with some general health tips for bladder health. I'm going to move over to some questions that we have. So for all of those, I can see a lot of questions are already starting to roll in. Start sending them in because we're organizing them in the background. But to get us started, here's one question I had for Andrea is, as we recognize World Menopause Month this month in October, we know that you've been very active in raising awareness on menopause, especially your TikTok videos that I've been tuning into. Why is this such an important subject for you?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of reasons. Number one is because when I was in perimenopause, which was about 5 to 8 years ago, I didn't really have anyone to talk to, and it wasn't really spoken about. I find that menopause is still pretty much a taboo topic, and when I was in it, I didn't want it to be a taboo topic anymore. So I started asking a lot of questions and doing a lot of research. And now that I'm in full menopause and learning every day the importance of women, once our ovaries take a rest and our adrenal glands kick in, the importance of healthy, when it comes to UTIs, the thinning of like we talked about, of the walls, the linings, just how do we take care of ourselves at this stage, and not being afraid to talk about it, not being embarrassed. There's so many women who are at work in person who are having issues or quitting their jobs, and now bringing it to the forefront as a Gen X woman. I just think it's super important that we have the discussion and that we rebrand it and that we are not afraid to take away, because if we talk about it, then it's not taboo anymore. So that's why for me, it's such an important topic. And I love that you talked about it before at the beginning.
No, thanks, Andrea. And it's huge. We need to get out of the taboo and get the discussion going. Perfect. So, knowing that UTIs do surge at the time of menopause, what advice do you have for women who are experiencing any UTIs in this stage of menopause?
I would say number one, make sure you're taking Utiva every day. And I know that sounds funny because we're on your webinar, but it is true. And I'm gonna talk in a second about a story that happened to me. But I do believe taking cranberry supplement prevention is really key. Making sure you practice the tips that I mentioned and talked about earlier. There's so much that we could do, and also speaking to your doctor. Like there are other therapies that you can look into, possibly like BHRT, that might help as well. Outside of my lane, but definitely there are options nowadays, and you don't have to suffer if it's something that you are having on a regular basis, recurrent UTIs.
So as you're a user of Utiva products you just mentioned, how has this helped you and for how long?
So the interesting thing that happened to me and why I love Utiva so much is I did an interview with Dr. Teresa Irwin. She's an OBGYN. You introduced us to it. You and Derek introduced me to her. And we have a YouTube channel. You could check it out there. And she was telling me about the importance of taking cranberry on a regular basis because she sees, you were saying before, that it's the second most common complaint that doctors see. So she was telling me about it. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna start taking about it. Then we started working with you. And I have to say, prior to taking Utiva, a daily capsule, when I would have to go to the bathroom, I would have to pee, I actually would get crazy hot flashes. Like it would literally, it was like, so we talk about triggers in menopause or perimenopause as what can trigger, let's say, a hot flash or a mood swing or whatever the 80 plus signs and symptoms of menopause would be. For me, one of my triggers for hot flashes was having to go to the bathroom, having to pee. Once I started taking Utiva, it went away. It wasn't triggering me to have a hot flash anymore. So obviously it had something to do with my bladder or my urethra. So that I can't explain it. I'm still trying to figure out what that is. And maybe Dawn, maybe you could figure it out, but I've asked so many people, but it definitely has made a difference for me in terms of my daily comfort level, because now I'm not getting, because, you know, obviously I try to drink as much, you know, that half my weight in ounces a day, and that would be a lot of hot flashes if you calculate it. So it has definitely made a huge difference for me.
No, thanks, Andrea. Great to hear that. And thanks for sharing that too.
Yeah, no problem.
Last question that we have before we turn it over to Dawn, and we're doing pretty good in time, so we should be wrapping up at 8:40 Eastern time here. So, Andrea, you come across many natural supplements, companies, and different brands. You know, what struck you the most about the Utiva brand and their leading product, the Utiva 36 milligrams of packs?
Yeah. So number one, it works, like we talked about. Number two, it's based on clinical and research and science. So that to me is a big one, is that you're actually using the amount that's been studied to help prevent those UTIs. I mean, if you look at your bottle, it says prevention for UTIs, which is a huge claim from Health Canada. And you can't say that unless you actually have the clinical science to like the clinical research to back that up. The other really amazing thing is you have the whole medical community, a lot of medical doctors on your side, which is rare, right? So having that says a lot about your product. And I'd say also the fact that you and Derek are just so passionate, and, you know, you're so sincere about what you do. And for me, I've been in the natural health industry for over 21 years now. And I've met a lot of companies and people who run companies and worked with many brands, and passion, sincerity, as well as just really wanting to help people. It just, you guys shine. And I love that you're in a space where you're helping women, and it comes from personal experience from your mom and your wife, you know, so all of that just makes a really big difference in terms of who you are and who the brand is.
Thanks so much, Andrea. That's very powerful and really well put together. It keeps us going now. Thank you for sharing.
Pick it up.
So, Andrea, we'll come back to you as we get questions from the audience, but now over to you, Dawn. My first question here to you is, as we talked about before, you're in a very busy health food store. And as you're in the health food store, seeing hundreds of people walking in there every day, and I know most of them are wanting to talk to you, what type of UTI customers are you seeing? Like, who are these people and what are they going through?
Yeah, well, because I am busy, I get to see kind of all of them, right? So I'm seeing kids sometimes. I'm seeing teenagers, certainly, adults, men, both men and women coming in, and the age range, of course, is all over the place. Most of my customers do, though, they fall into the category of menopausal or perimenopausal for sure. Often I do specialize in diabetes. I have a lot of clients that I help with. I do see a lot of people with diabetes as well. And that obviously has to do with the high blood sugar that they're having, and that sugar is feeding the bacteria.
Right. No, thanks. So I know you're seeing a variety of different people. What is generally your recommendation? Because there's a lot of options available. So where do you typically get them started?
Yeah, it's right now it's two products. Obviously, it's Utiva, the 36 milligram packs. That's my go-to. It works. Typically, what I do though is I have found, so I've played around over the last, I guess, couple of years, and often if I have someone that currently has an infection, I'll get them to take 2 capsules for the first 5 to 7 days, and then go down to 1 capsule as maintenance. And I know there's no actual research behind that, but what I'm seeing from my customers, my feedback is they're coming back and going, hey, that got rid of it really quickly for me. And that's what I want to see. And of course, that's what the customers want. So just by playing around, I'm lucky enough to have so many people that trust me, and they're like, oh, it says one on the box kind of thing, right? And they'll take my word for it, and they'll go and they'll try 2, and they're like, hey, it's working.
No, thanks, Don. And I know Andrea touched on a lot of different general health tips when it comes to the bladder. Anything that you would like to add to the list? Anything that you specifically see helping out that was not covered?
Right, again, back to my core, which is diabetes. I want to have people drinking water, and we got to get the sugars out of the body. So typically someone who's diabetic is thirsty anyway, so it's a good thing. But a lot of people don't take the time to actually drink. I can tell you, because it's one of the first questions I ask someone. I'm like, how much are you drinking during the day? How much water are you drinking? And time again, the majority of people that I talk to, oh, well, I have a coffee in the morning, have another coffee in the afternoon, and then maybe some water with dinner. And it's obviously not even close to Andrea's recommendations. So that's my biggest recommendation for my clients, or sorry, my customers in the stores, to get them simply drinking more water. And the other thing is working, excuse me, is depends on the person. So someone who has, I often get someone who has repetition. They're having these infections very frequently, chronically. And one of the things I do, and I do this in my private practice dealing with diabetes, and I find it works also with just general health, is reducing the animal proteins. And I want to talk specifically about chicken. There is a very large body of work to suggest that the bacteria in chicken is causing UTIs as well. And I've seen it a couple of times where people have actually dropped that chicken from their diet, and we've had far less infections after doing that. So those two big things work pretty good for me that I found.
Awesome. No, thanks, Don. And last question here before we turn it over to the floor is, you know, we know you're a fan of Utiva, and it's something you recommend regularly. Curious to know what sort of feedback you're getting back from these patients, these customers you see in the store. We've talked about the fact that it's worked, but any stories or any anecdotes that really pop out?
Yeah, I've had a couple of customers who've come to me, and they're like, oh, I've had chronic infections, and they're talking, you know, they're like, wow, I'm getting like 5 to 6 a year for the last 12 years. And it's, you know, it's heartbreaking to hear that. And when I get them on the Utiva 36 milligrams of packs, they come back in just like 2 weeks, and they're like, hey, and you know, hug. And it's kind of funny in this kind of world where we're not supposed to be hugging people, but I get hugs. It's fantastic. So, you know, these long-term people that think, oh, you know, it's never going away, I'm going to have to live with this. I can tell you don't, because the Utiva product works. And if you've had infections for years, get on it, work it, because it'll change your life.
No, thank you. Thanks, Don. Thanks, Andrea. We talked a lot about Utiva. We wanted to make sure that you had, for anyone who's listening in, they had general health tips as well. Because yes, Utiva does work, but you got to do your part when it comes to hydration, what you're eating, and some of your daily lifestyle habits, right? So we're doing really well with time. We closed in at 8:40. Our plan was to keep this moderated for 40 minutes. I'm going to remove the pin, take the screen share off, and get prepared for the questions. So give me a few seconds here to get organized. So we've got a bunch of questions that have started to come in. And let me start off right from the top here. All right, so there's a two-part question I'm seeing here as the first one. And okay, and there's no name on who to address it to. So Andrea, I'll start with you because you mentioned you do take D-mannose. Mm-hmm. And the question is D-mannose safe to take on a daily basis? Yeah. And is it necessary if you already take, I'm guessing they're saying Utiva, but like a 36-pack Cranberry product on a daily basis? So is it necessary to take both products? So Andrea, I'll get your opinion on that. And for those who are listening in, I mean, these are our perspectives. I mean, this is no medical opinion by any sort. So please keep that in mind. Andrea will share from her experience. We'll pass it on to Don, and I'll touch on the Utiva part as well.
Well, Faraz, I think you'd probably be the best in saying, you know, in terms of, do you take both? Do you take one? Like what helps, like in terms of that? But I would say if you, like I said, when I was talking that when I had an active infection, I did take the D-mannose and it did work. And that was recommended to me by my OBGYN. So my doctor told me to take the D-mannose. Don was saying that he recommends 2 capsules of Utiva. So that I don't know, Faraz, maybe you could speak to that as well. But from the D-mannose standpoint, I wouldn't take it on a daily basis. I would take the Utiva capsule on a daily basis and the D-mannose if you have an active infection. But again, like you said, away from the Utiva capsule.
Perfect. Don, I can jump in here. I mean, when it comes to D-mannose and its safety, we will always tell you to go check with your doctor because of the ingredients that D-mannose is made of. It is a simple occurring sugar, so it is best to get your doctor's opinion on it. Now, is it necessary to take daily? I'll tell you what we recommend. We always recommend that you start with taking the 36-pack Cranberry product, and if that's working well for you, you do not need to take the D-mannose. It is very expensive to take both products together, right? So if 36 packs are working, stick to it. But if you are seeing any symptoms come up, and I remember Andrea saying that, or Don was saying that if the symptoms come up, then you can take the D-mannose and it helps. Or if you know your trigger points, you can also take D-mannose along with it. But just make sure that if you are taking both together at the same time, you space it out by at least 2 hours, right? I'm going to move on to the next question. And since we have a boatload of questions over here, Andrea and Don, what I'll do is I'll pick one of you all to answer and I'll keep rotating. The next question over here is, do hot tubs cause UTI if you're prone to getting UTIs? Who would want to go for that one?
I don't have an answer for that one. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. I mean, you hear anecdotal evidence, but I'm not sure from a research standpoint if they say that it can be. But I would think that you just want to be, mindful of what you're putting in the bathtub, and exactly, because a lot of people will put certain things in the bathtub, and so yeah. But I don't have the scientific answer for that.
Yeah, and neither do I. I mean, there's no scientific answer to this, but we do know from the research and the doctors we do speak to, hot tubs. When you're out on the beach, those are just areas where you're sitting in water for a long period of time. Water could have E. coli in it that could travel and sit into your urethra. So just be very careful. Make sure you take your preventative options and be careful as you go into hot tubs, especially if you're prone to getting UTIs.
And just be mindful to clean your bathtub out before you're going in, because sometimes you might put stuff in and then you don't clean it out and then you refill it and then sit in it again. So just making sure your bathtub is really clean, being mindful of what you're putting in the bath as well. It's important.
Perfect. Next question over here is for Dawn. So as a nutritionist, this person, I believe, has diabetes and gets UTIs occasionally. Is there a connection between elevated glucose and UTIs? And the next question is D-mannose safe?
The answer is yes, there's a connection. I think I touched on that a little bit earlier. With uncontrolled sugar imbalances, your blood sugar is going to be higher, and E. coli bacteria love nothing more than sugar. It's absolutely their favorite food. So as your sugars are high, you're feeding bacteria. So yes, there is connection there. You got to work on that blood sugar, get it down through diet and lifestyle changes.
Perfect. The next question over here, this is to you, Andrea. What else do you recommend for menopause support for further aid outside of UTIs?
Oh my gosh, that's a loaded question. I would say, well, first of all, that's a broad question, so I'm just going to answer it from a broad perspective. Is whole foods, making sure that you're cleaning up your diet, nutrition, really important at this stage of life. And also what worked for you before may not work for you now in menopause. I've learned from so many people and hearing so many people stories from women that what they did before, if they had that glass of wine before dinner, they were fine. And now they just cannot do that glass of wine, or they can't have that cup of coffee anymore. So things change as we get into perimenopause and menopause. So I would say the earlier, the better. If you could start looking at your diet and cleaning up the nutrition, really, really important. Lifestyle, really key to making sure we're managing our stress as much as possible. Way easier said than done, but looking at that stress management, trying to go for walks in nature, trying to do that deep breathing breathing, setting, times on your phone to remind you to breathe. So many of us are going. We don't even remember to breathe, yet alone. And when we are breathing, it's super shallow. So again, easier said than done, but just some things to be mindful of, taking in those deep breaths and just trying to, watching funny movies, making time for yourself. A lot of women, as they go into menopause, we're so busy. Like Gen X women, we're kind of in the middle of, listen, I had my third at 41. I have a 10-year-old. So like for me, I understand what it's like not to have a lot of time on our hands. I have aging parents. So we have a lot on our plate, and I have 3 kids. So trying to remember to take time for yourself, even if that's just like sitting on your back porch, drinking your cup of tea in the morning or whatever that is. Just self-care is really crucial. And supplements, there are a lot of great supplements out there that can really help from a daily maintenance in terms of keeping your immune system strong, your brain strong, and all of that. But in order to recommend what other than, Cranberry, which we're talking about specifically for UTIs, that's a whole other probably hour webinar.
Yeah, no, so true. There's so much on the menopause side, especially the number of symptoms related to menopause. That's a huge topic, 100%.
And I've done a lot of research on that. So yeah.
So on that note, I mean, there's a lot of content that Andrea has on her website. I think it's morphus.com. So for those.
We are Morphus. Yeah. So we are morphus.com, morphus.com.
And Andrea, if you want, you can post that into the chat box, and then we'll make sure that we pass it on to everybody who's listening in.
No problem.
The next question, I'll take that one, is please elaborate more on what PACs are. So PACs is a short form for the molecule that's inside the cranberry. So the cranberry has many different components in it, but the active molecule is called proanthocyanidin. But in short, PACs. And PACs, how do they work? So PACs, essentially, if you've got any bacteria in the bladder, PACs will stick to it. And as Don was saying, it makes it slippery. It won't stick to your bladder. And if it won't stick to your bladder, it's not going to irritate the bladder. It's not going to cause you any of those symptoms that you don't want, and it'll just flush it out. So PACs are the most important thing that you really need from the cranberry. You don't need any of the other stuff in the cranberry. That's all you need, but you need the right dosage of it. And I think that's what we were really trying to highlight, is you do need to get at least 36 milligrams of PACs in order for it to fight the bacteria to keep you healthy. Okay. The next question over here is regarding probiotics. So Don, I'm going to pass this on to you because we heard Andrea talk about probiotics, and this one is specifically around ingredients, and you must see a ton in your store. Anything specific ingredient to look for in a probiotic that helps with prevention, or will most probiotics have the ingredients necessary?
Yeah. Look for one that is women specific. There are several on the market, so I'm not going to name brands, but look for ones where that'll say women on it. Some of them will actually say like yours. I'm trying to think of what it looks like again, but it'll say urinary tract on it. So there's lots of different ones on the market because there's different strains that are very specific to women versus your general probiotic. So look for one of those. There's lots on the market.
Sure. Thanks, Don. Next question over here. And Andrea, this one's for you. How can menstruation-related UTIs be avoided other than hygiene and keeping dry?
I was going to say you definitely want to go into the hygiene and all the tips, making sure you're drinking enough and all of that in terms of, and maybe, again, if you have recurring UTIs and you've tried the cranberry, it's still not working. I mean, obviously going to your doctor and asking your doctor if there could possibly be another reason, but my specialty is more menopause and perimenopause in terms of it, but that would be kind of where I would go ask my doctor. And then all the tips we talked about, of course, it's important.
No, thank you. The next question over here, it's a Utiva related question, so I'll take it. Is it better to take Utiva at night or the morning? What I'll say is it's important for you to take Utiva at roughly the same time every day, because it works on a 24-hour cycle. And for that daily flush to work out. So whatever you do, stay consistent. Some of the specialists that we work with say it is better to take it at night, because if you have any retention of urine in the bladder, you definitely have the PACs active through the night, helping stick to it, helping flush it, right? So It's up to you what time of the day you take it, but just make sure you take it on a 24-hour cycle and do your best to keep it on a daily basis. Next question over here, Don, I'll pass this over to you. If you feel like a UTI is coming on, can you take more than one capsule? I believe you answered that, but the question has come up again. So if you want to elaborate more into it.
Yeah, so if you've had urinary tract infections before, you know what it's like, right? So you know that feeling that's going to happen. So yeah, I do recommend take 2 capsules for the first 5 days. It seems to be working with my customers. And so yeah, I'd recommend that. And then of course after those 5 or 7 days, drop down to 1. You know, I know it's expensive product, so there's no need to do 2 capsules. That's just simply what I've seen at the stores with all my customers. Again, there's no research or anything to suggest that, but it seems to be working well.
Perfect. Thank you, Don. So the next question here for Andrea, it's menopause related, so I'm coming to you, Andrea, is I had many UTIs when going through menopause. Now at 71, they are back.
Mm-hmm.
Being a urologist and began taking Utiva daily and using an estrogen cream vaginally too. It's been 3 months and I was good for the first 2 months and now I have a UTI. What's the chance that it will get better?
And sorry, so she's taking Utiva daily and she's doing estrogen?
I don't see anything.
Okay, I would say, I mean, again, I'm not a doctor.
Sorry, she did say she's been taking Utiva daily. Yeah.
Now, has she tried D-mannose? That's what I would say. I would ask if she tried D-mannose to try and get rid of that infection. And is she taking, if she is taking the D-mannose, is it away from the Utiva capsule? Is she taking probiotics? What's her diet like? What's her nutrition like? So there would be so much, so, you know, lots of questions with the question, but those would be some of the questions that I would have her. I'm not a hormone expert, so that would be for her doctor. But in terms of the lifestyle and nutrition portion of it, is she drinking enough? All of those other tips that I gave, which, you know, a lot of them had to do with lifestyle factors, is crucial.
Awesome. We're nearing right towards the end of 9 o'clock. So what I'll do is I'll ask Andrea and Don one more question. So we'll do the last 3 questions. One here for me that has come up is around Utiva. I think it's more, when did you say to take D-mannose and cranberry pills? So once again, I'll quickly reiterate, it's if you are taking both products, D-mannose and cranberry pills, the most important thing to remember is to keep them separate by at least 2 to 3 hours. Our recommendation, just to keep things simple, take the cranberry pills in the morning and take the D-mannose in the evening. If you're taking only one of those products, just make sure you're taking them on a 24-hour cycle. Pick whatever time of the day is most convenient for you and stick to that. Next question over here, Don, this would be our last question, is last question to you, and then I'll come back to Andrea. Is it best to take a probiotic every day if you're prescribed an antibiotic every time after intercourse? And what does the probiotic do for you?
If you're doing antibiotics, yes, you do need to do a probiotic, and you don't have to wait until your course of antibiotics is done. So if you're doing your antibiotic, you want to take your probiotic in the same day, but at least 2 hours, if not even longer, away from that antibiotic that you're doing. And anyone, what I do when I do my consultations is, once you're done that round of antibiotics, stay on a probiotic for 3 months. You've just killed off a lot of your good bacteria, if not all, depending on what antibiotic you're on. You need to replenish that. And if you stop taking that probiotic too fast, that infection might come back. You might not have enough good bacteria to fight off the bad bacteria. So stay on it for a long period of time. I suggest 3 months afterwards.
Okay. No, thanks, Don. Last question for you, Andrea. It's related to triggers. There's a number of triggers that you touched on during your talk. I think people are asking, can you give us some examples of triggers just to kind of wrap it up for everyone?
Yeah, so like chocolate could be a trigger, caffeine can be a trigger, coffee could be a trigger, caffeine, alcohol can be a trigger, right? So I always tell people to keep a food diary. That's one of the things I always talk about, mindful living and mindful eating and keeping a food diary. So that's the way you talked about the tracker before. The best way to know what your triggers could possibly be is that, you know, when you're eating things, write it down. If you're prone to recurrent UTIs, write it down. And then you can make that connection to see that, oh, wait a minute, this, I just ate this. And if it's within a 24-hour period, oh, maybe that's what's creating that trigger. Or, you know, oh, I don't feel so good down there even sooner than that. Like, so just listen to your body, and then you could start tracking your own triggers that you know that could actually be leading to that and causing that. So that's why I'd say I'm a big fan. So if you don't want to keep a food journal, you know, I always say, put on your phone, put in your notes, use a tracker, use real paper. You know, we have that still. So any way that you're going to keep track of it is to me is the best way to do it.
Awesome. No, so well said. We have these tools, make use of it, use the UTI tracker app, download it. But if you're not doing that, do something, but make sure you track and know your body, know your triggers.
Yeah, we have
awesome. Hey, before we wrap up, I wanted to give each of you an opportunity to speak about what you're passionate about. Andrea, I'll go to you first. Tell us a little bit more about Morphus, and then we'll wrap it up.
We talked a lot about it. So just really quickly, it's for women in perimenopause and menopause. And follow me on TikTok, because I do a lot of videos on TikTok for educational support. And our website is wearemorphus.com. And then I also run Naturally Savvy. So if you follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Naturally Savvy, where we talk about lifestyle.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Andrea. Don, please tell us more about Blue Dot Nutrition.
I focus on diabetes. That's the main thing. I actually lost my sister many years ago due to diabetes. And so that really instilled the passion in me to educate myself and be able to help as many people as I can. Type 2 diabetes, we don't have to live with it. It's easily reversible with diet changes and lifestyle changes. So yeah, that's what I'm all about.
No, thanks, Don. And we have your website information in the chat box so people know where it is. Hey, both of you, thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being patient with our questions right on the dot 9 o'clock. You both don't need to stay around. We'll quickly do the raffle and end today's talk. Thanks again.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a night.